Welcome to the show, Steve.
Really, really cool to be here. Nice that we, connected on LinkedIn, and then happy to be here. Looking forward to sharing some of my stuff.
That's awesome. Well, this wouldn't be business with beers if I didn't ask you that me and you are at a nice bar in West Palm Beach. What are we drinking?
So if it's beer, we're drinking Heineken.
Okay.
Heineken or Guinness. Those are my two
Okay.
go-to. But I'm a beer lover, and I'm into all the craft beers. I'm willing to try stuff. I just usually I tend to stay with the red and the amber. I'm not an IPA guy. So.
Yeah. It's usually one or the other. Hey, for those who don't know who Steve Nudelberg is, tell your story. Who are you? What do you do?
So I am a guy that grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So I heard this kind of chatter at the dinner table all the time, was intrigued by it. Went to school, and in college kind of knew that my calling was going to be in business. It was going to be around people. So I'm fortunate. I've had a 40 plus year career of owning my own businesses, being partners with other people, building, selling, failing, all the above. Never a straight line, just a great roller coaster. But I met and been fortunate to work with great people in my career. And now I have the opportunity to give back the knowledge that I have. And I call it sending the elevator back down.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I'm currently in process of reading your book, Confessions of a Serial Salesman. And it's awesome. I think, talk about that. I mean, it's 40 years of your career, right? Everything you learned into a book.
Well, so it's interesting because I was voted in high school to not be the guy to write a book.
Okay.
So after, the last iteration of my business, when I sold that, I wasn't really sure what the future was going to hold. And someone said, why don't you leave a legacy for your grandson? And I was like, what do you mean? They said, write a book, tell your story. And I was like, wow, that's a neat idea. So throughout my career, I've been a process guy. Everything about what I do, I find a way to do it disciplined and consistent. And so my book is really just my process of how I've managed to live in a category that gives you the most rejection of any business you could be in. Sales is rough. So I have 27 rules for influencers and leaders. And basically I just shared my process from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, what I do, how I do it, who I choose to do it with. And it has led me to, riches, both in people and in, money and in opportunity. It's phenomenal.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So one of my first questions is about leadership. In your view, what makes a good leader?
So it's interesting because as my career developed, my definition of leadership changed. I was one of those guys like, hey, I'm doing it, I'm successful, you should follow me. And that has totally flipped in to what I do now, which is I have a real genuine concern for helping people be the best they can be, not the best that I want them to be. And so I think leadership is about developing, understanding, having the patience to understand what people want and help them get there.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone has, the things that they're the best at right there. And it's their highest value for them to do. And it's like putting the right people right in the right roles. And you got a good person, but you're trying to do something he's not capable of doing or just not his skill set. It's not going to work. Right.
One of the skill sets that I've noticed in great leaders is self-awareness. They know who they are. They know how they show up. They know how they interact with people. And when leaders don't do that, the culture of the whole organization suffers because they have a myopic view of everything. It all comes through their lens, not through a global lens. So when you see leaders who embrace their vulnerability, their weaknesses, and they're trying to get better at the same time, helping other people get better and set a roadmap, it really is magical when it works.
Yeah. What about techniques to help train people? So, in our business, we have managers that manage locations, right? But even, that manager needs to be a leader for his team, right? leader's not always the boss. It's at every level. So how can a new person go about learning how does he inspire others to kind of follow his lead and, and affect change and hold people accountable, right? Because I think that's the accountability component is a challenge I think a lot of people struggle with.
So accountability starts within.
Yep.
We use this term all the time. You need to become the CEO of your own life first. Once you do that, people pay attention to that and are willing to look at, hey, how you doing that? And so, when we mention the word diet to people, they're generally thinking food, and your diet is really what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, and who you hang out with. Those are all ways to get better, to pay attention to, as we say, success leaves clues. So when you manage yourself accordingly, people pay attention, and therein lies one of the keys to leadership is you got to do it first before someone else will do it with you. Yeah,
just leading by example, right? But then part of that example is, like you said, your own goals and how are you managing it yourself?
I mean, for me, I was always the first one in my business. I got there first. So I didn't have any problem suggesting to other people that they needed to get there.
Sure. Yeah.
So hard to imagine asking somebody to do something that you wouldn't do or are not doing yourself. And so that's the way I've always led my organizations. Never asked anybody to do anything I wouldn't already be doing, and showing the success for that.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things you just mentioned earlier was about, the word diet, but really it's what you consume, not just your food, but, consume in terms of relationships. And part of that is the environment, right? And the people that you surround yourself with and the ideas that you surround yourself with. Can you speak about that? Like going about creating a good environment to live in, to develop?
I think we're living in an age where, when I'm on stage and I ask the audience, hey, who in the audience owns a library? They all look at me like, nobody owns a library. And then I go, wait a minute, everybody owns a library. You're carrying it in your hand.
Yeah.
So your ability to consume quantities of information that are valuable, that make you better, that create awareness, that create opportunities to connect. We're really, really big proponents of being social. I think the world we lived in was physically distant, not socially distant. So you can build relationships all over the world if you take the time and the energy to do that. And live by 3 L's, lifelong learning. I make it a habit to learn something every single day. And the book I write about it, I call it an aha moment. I have one every day. I've had one every day in my life. I look for things that make me better, look for things that, and in turn, you have more to share. And, I think, people need to focus on what they want, how they're going to get there. And, generally the roadmap is not as difficult as one might think.
Yeah. So what are some things that you've learned over the last, this year in 2021, some of the big ones?
So if you would have asked me pre-pandemic, and I'll qualify this by saying we were working with organizations showing them how to use virtual prior to, being engaged physically, the scalability was there. We were using Zoom 3 years ago. But if you would have asked me if I could develop a roadmap of CEOs that I work with that I've never been in the same room with, never shook their hands, I would have questioned that. But I have some amazing relationships, people that I get to work with that to this date I have not been in the same room with. So I think it surprised even me, the fact that we are a culture right now where face-to-face can happen in this environment at scale, and face-to-flesh will happen either when it's appropriate or when it's available. Okay.
Yeah. So the ability to grow and scale a business and then create relationships through a digital, Zoom face-to-face. Yeah. Just as not just as powerful, but, can have a better effect than I think a phone call, if it's just phones, it's not the same as seeing somebody.
Correct. I think there is that you can be visible to people. You can do it quickly, efficiently. Nobody's leaving their environment. But I think the number one commodity that came out of all of this, or not a commodity, an asset, is awareness. The more people who are aware of who you are, there's more people that can consider what you do. And then therefore, the more people who consider it are the ones who can make a decision. So regardless of the business you're in, we are back to that age of, hey, do you have a guy? I need to get my car fixed. Yeah. Brian's my guy. I need my house. Who's your guy? Who's your furniture guy? Who's your, so I think understanding the power of what old school mentality and new school tools have done have really created a combo that for a lot of categories have created growth far beyond anything they could have imagined prior to it.
Yep. Yeah, I have a phrase we use all the time, which is awareness creates opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And that the more people are aware, right, of something that you do, the bigger opportunity that is have. And for us, in the auto repair business, we're trying to grow a specific category. Let's say it's tires. Right. For us, it's, the people at the salespeople at the counter, making sure they're talking to customers about tires. Right. And that even if they don't need them today, letting them know, hey, we're in the game. We got good prices. We have them in stock. Next time you need them, consider us. Right. And then what happens is, they may not need tires, but they have their wife's car, or, another family member's car may need tires. And once again, by having that conversation and creating the awareness, now we have this opportunity to make a sale, strengthen the relationship, et cetera. And I think that seems to be a challenge for a lot of people. It's a challenge for us to have our sales team kind of do that, having those conversations where they're not actually selling anything, but they're creating awareness. Any thoughts on that?
Couple of things that come to mind. Number one is that conversation doesn't only need to happen when they're at a point of sale. It can happen anytime, anywhere. That's the power of social. It's just, hey, all of the things that you do as a person really turn out to be breadcrumbs that lead people to you. Oh, he's the Midas guy. Oh, and why don't I ask him? And built-in trust because I already know who you are. So I think, but we really frown on the word sales in general. We think selling is dead. Nobody wants to be sold, and I ask anybody, do you like to be sold? No. And they all think of that bad scenario. So
they want to buy.
If you're willing to share more about who you are, you earn the right to talk about what you do for a living. So it's really permission-based marketing, where people will ask me, they go, hey, you're a successful guy in sales. I got a question for you. They're opening up the dialogue, permitting me to say what I do and how I do it. And ultimately, most of the business that we do now, someone is saying, what does it look like to work with you? How do we engage with you? What does it cost? So the whole pitch mentality, when you pitch, people ditch.
Yep. So how does a company go about shifting then to that process? What is, there's a training aspect, right, of how those conversations have to have, at an auto repair shop, or in a, someone trying to sell a new whatever payroll service or whatever it is. How does that change, or how do we train our people how to change?
So I think culturally shifting the vocabulary, because training seems one-dimensional. That's me throwing training at you, very little engagement in that. Coaching is a whole nother story, where you sit down and you invest in the people and say, tell me about you, tell me where you think you're strong and where you're weak, and how can I help you? And so the coaching mentality creates a genuine feedback loop, which is athletes live by it. They go out, they practice all day long. Eye in the sky says, hey, sit down with the coach. These are the things that you could correct to get you better. It's very much the same dialogue in companies. So instead of it being, hey, we're going to throw you in a room for 3 hours and we're going to train you, we're going to work together to get you better on things that you want to get better at. And in turn, the whole organization has a culture of learning. And so I think it starts at the top. It's a thought process. It's mentality. We will not engage with organizations where the C-suite is not actually doing everything that we're coaching, just won't do it. And if they say, well, that's for them to do, we go, then you got to find somebody else to work with, because it all starts top down.
Yep. Yeah, the last couple of months, I've been doing one-on-ones with our store manager level, going out to lunch, sitting down, just chatting through, what's going well, what's not going well. Like I said, what they need from me, and kind of going over company big vision, right, and where we want to go and why we want to do it. And I can definitely I can see an impact that there's a change on having those conversations, and I think also sitting down with the boss sometimes is and having that direct engagement is a lot more impactful than just me sending a broad, Slack message out or an email or whatever, right? It's the face-to-face connection, and it's an investment of my time and their time, right? And but I see huge results, so I think that's great and the vocabulary, but actually taking the action and sitting down with people is amazing.
Understanding the impact that you can have on people is significant. If you listen to great coaches like Pete Carroll, he comes right out and tell you, he doesn't coach every player the same. He figures out how that player needs to be coached based on who they are, what their background is, what their skill sets are. And knowing that going into it, your one-on-ones allow you to do that. It's not a one size fits all. Yep. Not everybody learns the same, not at the same rate. And, so understanding that time that you're spending building a relationship is really building trust.
It is. Yep.
That trust, you can't break it. That's when companies go through turmoil, they count on that trust bond. And if they have not developed it, that's when they fall apart and have turnover and all that kind of stuff. So,
yep. And part of that trust is, if they're, not happy with maybe how the job's going, instead of going and just quitting, they can come to me, they trust that I'm going to, we're not just going to fire them, right? But we're going to try to work it out. And, I can trust that if they're slacking, I can have an honest conversation about where they got to pick it up. And, but you don't get that unless, like I said, you invest the time in those conversations and being authentic and actually caring. So,
what's interesting is that you find that all of us play multiple roles besides what we do at work. We're all a father, a brother, we have some other role, a friend. And so you never know what's going on in someone's life that is contributing to either the good work or the bad work. When you find that out, that's where the real life stuff is, where you go, wow, I understand it, I get it. Empathy. What can we as a company do to help you move around that obstacle? And when you do that, you just build such incredible loyalty. It's fantastic to see.
Yep. You have mentioned multiple times creating a roadmap to success. Can you explain, what does that mean? How do you go about creating it? Is it something a company could apply, like I could apply to my guys? Can you walk me through that?
So, nobody just shows up to the game to play. There is some kind of game plan. There's practicing that goes into it. And so, if a group of us got together and went out on the field, we wouldn't just run around and do whatever. So I think people love process. When you put them in a process and you help them understand, you have a personal process, then you get into a business. Here's how we've done things in the past. We welcome your feedback, but this is how we do it. This is a winning combination. Yep. For me, conquering the mornings, owning the morning is a very significant thing in personal and in business. We do a show on LinkedIn called the Daily Huddle, which I did in all of my businesses. And now we just took it live. And, we have 25 or 30,000 people who tune in the morning to get a morning boost of energy and motivation and content to fill their head. So part of building a process, is what am I doing that is repeatable, that's disciplined and consistent? And when you do that, the riches, usually show up.
Okay. So is that part of the roadmap, is helping people identify what some of those routines could be and like where they are now, maybe in their career, and, where they want to go? Do they want to own assets and they want to start their own business, right? Trying to help them kind of get from point A to point B? Or is that more than?
It really depends. As an organization, I have always had the roadmap. Here's how we do things. We show up. If you show up 15 minutes before the meeting, that works. If you show up at the meeting time or after, it doesn't work. That's our process.
Okay.
show up at 8 o'clock for an 8 o'clock meeting, the door is locked. That's our process. You either want to play on our team, and I'm a big football guy. So, and part of my career, I worked with football coaches. So, Nick Saban is not interested in how you feel about how they set up the process at Alabama. You want to wear the A, you got to be up to the standards of what it is to play for that team. So I think the responsibility of the organization is to, set those systems, processes, and boundaries in place. Then you can help people take it to their personal life and say, hey, what is it that you want to get out of this? What is your why? But unless you already have a system in place, it's chaos, and I loved it because just recently Coach Saban said, this is not a democracy. This is what I set up to create an optimal chance for us all to win. Now, individually, I can work with you about what's important to you, but this is what's important to the organization. That's why they plug and play every year. Guys show up there, great athletes, that all of a sudden, boom, you're at Alabama now, bro. You gotta, it's a different show.
It's amazing to watch them just every year. They lose all these top guys to draft picks, and then they have a rookie, quarterback to whatever, and he comes in, he's just as good as the guy they lost, if not better. And it's amazing that the system and the how they have this process it's unbeatable right now, right? So
what it teaches you, which is so great that you brought it up, is that the system lives beyond the players. The players come, the players go. This will happen in all of our lives. People make personal decisions to leave the business, but the structure, the bones of the business, the heart of the business should be able to support the change. Pat Riley, taught us, he said, the only thing in life you can count on is change. So you better learn to embrace it. So it's never about the individual. They're the small cog in what the system is. And that's why they win all the time. That's why Tom Brady brings that mentality to other organizations and they win. So it's, I am a firm believer that success leaves clues. And if you follow people that are doing it already, you just got to pick off pieces of what they're doing and make it your own.
Yeah, when I think about a good, a business and a defense, high defense level business, it's that, right? That people can change, times can change, but the system continues to roll. And it's even a challenge in our business where we depend on highly skilled mechanics. So you lose one at a shop, and it's definitely hard to replace that with lesser skilled people. So then we become dependent, right, on these very skilled people, and we hope to create these cultures where they don't want to leave and they're paid well, but it's a challenge. So then it's for us, it's thinking, how do we then change our business model or modify that we're not as dependent on certain individuals to drive profitability and success.
Yeah, if you take something away from college football, recruiting is the number one thing. It's actually the same thing for business. The power of your bench will dictate your ability. Do people want to get in? Do people want to play for your team? That doesn't mean you hire them instantly. You just sort of have a powerful bench, and all the organizations we will work with, part of their messaging is, hey, this is a great place to work. That doesn't mean it's a fit now, but they have a constant loop of people who are interested inbound, which is a big takeaway from social.
Yeah. And you're right on the recruiting side, we don't see any of that, right? We just see the player in the field and he's amazing, but all the hours and miles and dedication that went into finding these guys, and then, making sure they are who they really, say they are, and meet the core values of the organization, and not just, a good player. We're big on that. We follow traction to a degree, right? We have the core values to get the right people, and that's sometimes it'll be really skilled at something, but if they don't meet integrity, or they don't have the drive, or if they're not a friendly person, we don't want them, because then it's poisonous.
They become poisonous to the culture. So talent alone does not win. But both of my boys were in college football coaching. They recruited. They saw kids with great talent. Talent without heart never wins, man. Passion and drive and commitment and all of those kind of things. And so I would much prefer to have somebody who will go to the mat with me that's less talented than the most talented person.
Yep.
Because they show you by behavior that they're a winner.
Yep. Yeah, I know we touched a little bit on the daily huddle, but if you don't mind, what are some of the benefits of that, of having that huddle for a company every single morning? Because it takes a ton of commitment, right? And someone's time to do that. But what are some of the results and the benefits that you've seen of getting your team together? We do it weekly now. I have a Monday at noon, we do it, but it's a weekly huddle. But I know it probably could be better if it was daily and probably earlier, right?
Well, for me, most of the organizations I built were sales organizations that we had, customer service and support of the sales. But the huddle was for everybody to feel the pulse of what was happening. It was informational. Hey, this is what's going on. This is someone's birthday. This is, every day there was something, there were wins and losses. And so it sort of kept people in the right frame of mind and never let them get too far away from the mothership. In a week, if somebody goes bad, you got 6 days for them to be festering some kind of bad attitude or bad thing. We nip it in the bud. What's going on? Here's some good stuff. What can we do for you? So it's that constant repetition. So I did it in all of my businesses. We instituted it online at the beginning of the pandemic. People were like reaching out to us, like, what do we do? And I said, we got to stay focused. You got to keep a positive mind. You got to stay away from the news. And so we just created the Daily Huddle online where anybody can come. And I would say most of the organizations we work with, they send their people, it's free, it's online, it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And it's always very empowering, very energetic. And it's just a jolt that allows people to stay on track, because for sure, this, we're going to get beat up every day. The world is not a friendly place. We look at negative stuff all day long. If you want to watch the news is depressing.
I know.
There's just nothing good. They don't tell you the good stuff, but if you search it out and you see people who, like Chris Nikic, the kid that won the Ironman that was, has Down syndrome, you focus on stories like that where he tells people, I made a choice to get in shape, to work hard every day. Those kind of stories are very empowering, very uplifting, and they reprogram your thought process. So mental conditioning is almost as important as physical conditioning. And that's what the Daily Huddle serves to do.
Gotcha. And is it just you and your people sharing, or are you calling our people, getting called out kind of from the audience to share if they want? What's it look like?
It's an interactive show. We usually get somewhere between 60 and 80 people live, but you don't have to. The only way we know that they're live is that they check in. Good morning. And start networking with each other, which social networking during a live show is hilarious to watch. People commenting, hey, let's grab a coffee after this, all virtual. But because of the power of LinkedIn, you take those 80 people and multiply it by their audiences and all the people that are watching that we can't see. That's how the numbers add up to 25,000. But if somebody has something to say, we shout them out. Hey, Brian's here this morning and Brian said this, and there's some regulars who have, comments, and we've brought them on, and, they've had their moment in the sun, but it's super commitment. It's a super commitment for us, but we would be doing it anyway for our company. So all we're really doing is sharing it, and letting other people in.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'll check it out. Hey, so one of my questions around failure, what's one of the biggest failures you've kind of faced through your career, and what'd you learn from it?
So I know the biggest failure I had was during the days of my sports marketing company. I had been given the opportunity for a short window to do the naming rights for the building where the Florida Panthers play. And one of the companies was coming off, and they gave us a 90-day window before they set it out for bid and let everybody in the country bring somebody. We found a naming rights partner, negotiated the deal, was basically done. I was in the corporate office of the company that was going to do it, and I got a call from the CEO of the Panthers who said, hey, we're not going to make it there tomorrow. And I was like, what are you talking about? We're all set to sign the deal. And he goes, the board decided to go with a different naming rights partner. And I was like, what? It was like, I had already spent the money, told my friends, it was done. I was there. So I learned that nothing's ever done until it's done.
Yeah,
or never done until you get paid. And what it taught me was that I would have done everything the same. Given if I rewrote the movie, I brought the deal to where it was supposed to be. It was outside of my control. And so my lesson from my biggest failure was the best one, is that they were going to commit a big chunk of money to get something done. I could have made it about me. I didn't. I made it about them. Okay, this opportunity went away. I got to go back to the drawing board and do the work to find them something else. And I think, that's a choice. You're either the victim mentality or you're the aggressor. Yep. You've heard Rocky and all of that stuff. The world's not sunshine and rainbows. But when you get hit, that's your test on how fast you get back up. And the biggest failures in my career turned out to be the greatest lessons that would not have allowed me to progress and become who I am. So when I speak to audiences, I open up by going, the only reason why I'm up here and you're not is that I agreed to fail more than you. And people are like, what? I go, that's where all of the jewels are. I've had 3 that went over the fence and everybody, oh, wow, he's such a great entrepreneur. Nobody talks about the 100 that did.
Yeah. What's another one then? Another failure you had that you.
So I tried to get in so I'm a builder, and I built a cosmetics company. I was in discussions with somebody about another piece of business, and somebody in their lab came up with a product that helped people grow their eyelashes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute, isn't there a product like already out there that does it? Yeah, it's a pharmaceutical product. It costs a lot, has a lot of side effects. So I said, okay, I'll buy the rights to the formula. I'll package it and sell it, and did a really good job on all of those fronts, but didn't have any idea about the complications and the things that go on in the nuances of the cosmetic business. And I was fortunate that, within 2 years, we were able to sell the company. We didn't get crushed. We didn't make any money. We turned a lot of money, but it was, it made me understand you got to know what you're good at. You got to stay in your lane, and not my lane. I had some friend of mine at Estee Lauder said, what are you doing in this business?
A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, it's a shiny object syndrome, right? You see it and you think, oh, there's a huge market here, I can make a ton of money. And then, and then there's this other saying, you probably know it, but everything you say yes to, you say means no to something else. Right? So you saying yes to spend all this time in 2 years on this eyelash thing meant no to probably all these other opportunities that would have been in your zone and could have made a ton of money on. And just remember to keep that in mind. If every time we commit and we say yes, it means we're pushing something else in our life aside.
Warren Buffett teaches us that the number one rule is the power of no. Say no to everything, say yes to a few things. And that's in your calendar, in your life, overcommitting, stay focused on the yeses, because that's where the jewels are.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't say no to my podcast here. So I appreciate that.
No, I admire when people jump out of their comfort zone and do stuff like this. I've been doing it for 8 years because I was bored. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so I studied social media, and I said, wow, this is like the coolest thing that ever happened. The barrier to entry for somebody like you is small. I mean, it's not, anybody can do this. You got to be willing to put yourself out there and be uncomfortable in the beginning, and then voila, you're a TV star. Yeah,
I mean, sure. When I first started doing it, of course, I was nervous. Fear of, what people think, or people won't like it, or no one will listen, or, but then there's this polar opposite in the world that exists that, people could love it, and that, it could, I'm going to gain confidence and get better. And, every day is a learning experience on it. So I think, people just got to get outside their comfort zone, and then, they get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and then you grow. So, but yeah, a lot of commonality there. One of my final questions, you're a coach to a lot of people, but for you, who is someone in your life who's been a coach or a mentor that has helped you kind of get to where you're at?
So I was fortunate that through my sports marketing career, I represented a lot of NFL coaches. So Nick Saban was one of those. Okay. am super blessed that my first client was Don Shula, and Coach Shula taught me so much that I didn't even know he was teaching me, but he was one of those guys that his word was impeccable. And I talk to people about this now in all of my speeches and all of my coaching sessions. From what I learned from him, I created something called the say-do ratio. Whatever coach said to you, he did. You could go to the bank with what he said. We all know people who say a lot of shit and don't ever do it. You can almost tell when they're saying it. Like in your head, you're going, he's never going to do that.
Yeah.
If you're willing to keep score on a daily basis and do everything that you say, a say-do ratio that is 1-to-1, not only will your life absolutely change, everybody else around you will know it and notice it. So being around coaches who were doing that kind of thing, they were teachers, they were that's where I fell in love with the practice of doing this, of impacting other people, making it about them, not about me. As an entrepreneur, it was always about me. Yeah. What can I get? What can I do? And once I climbed that ladder and saw that the cars and the vacations, they come anyway. There had to be something more. The impact, the legacy that you can leave when you help other people. So I learned that from coaches. My favorite coach, just did my show recently, is Dave Wannstedt, a Pittsburgh guy, played at Pitt, coached at Pitt. But through him, I met Jimmy Johnson and Coach Ditka, and just being around those kind of people who are all process, they all had a system, So I've been blessed, but also I've been fortunate to know a lot of entrepreneurs that all I did was ask them what their story was. So Mark Cuban, Damon John, people that I've been introduced to, that I've had relevant dialogue with, I've done deals with, and I don't drop those names like lightly. I was fortunate, but I took the step to ask. And what you will find almost unilaterally is that people who have been successful send the elevator back down. They just do it. I never get an answer like, no, I'm not going to help you, whatever. People who are successful, who are willing to help, and all you got to do is ask.
Yeah. Contribution, Tony Robbins has these 6, human needs or whatever. And, contribution's one of them. For them, they've achieved all these others, right? They have the sales, they have the income, they have the relationship, they can go wherever they want. Right. And but then it comes down to, are they contributing? Are they helping others? And it's like a core need. And obviously for them in their position, they've achieved everything else. Right. So now helping as many people as they can becomes a need that they're looking to fill. So I think
when they do, it's really impactful. I mean, it's they have big voices. In addition to big pocketbooks, they have big voices. They can impact a lot of people. Tony's done an amazing job. He lives just up the road in Palm Beach, so he's very visible in and around here. And I know a bunch of guys that worked with him and for him. He's impacted their careers. So when that's real legacy stuff. When it's all said and done and you're gone, what do they say about you? What did you leave behind? And that to me is really important now.
Yep. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, the say-do ratio. It's basically the definition of accountability, right? Do you do what you say you're gonna do is accountability, but actually, by framing it like this, now you have a score, right? There's a score associated with accountability. People, I don't know, maybe they think it's fluff or they don't really know what it means, but you actually having
one of the key ones that comes up all the time is, I got to introduce you to this person and whatever. And then you never hear from them again. If I tell you I'm going to introduce you to somebody, I'm making that introduction. Yep. Otherwise I drive myself crazy. So it's a lot of note taking, a lot of detail, but I will not say something. That's where the training comes in, unless I'm fully prepared to do it. So I've created that filter where the tendency is just to go, blah, 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 blah. It's whoa, I don't know if I really want to do that, and so I'll temper it. And that just comes with age and maturity.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, any books you're reading now that you'd recommend to the audience?
Great question. So I read a lot of books. Yep. My favorite book last year was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It was an amazingly rich funny, real book that is just fantastic. It was just a great read. First time I read it on a plane, and people were looking at me like, what are you laughing at? And I go, this is just breakout funny. The book I'm recommending to everybody, including my clients, is The Obstacle is the Way.
Okay. Yep.
Which is a great book that points to when something lands in front of you, it's there for a reason. It's there for you to figure out how to get around it. And you look at the greats like Michael Jordan, who got cut from his basketball team in the 9th grade. That was the obstacle, and he figured out a way around it. He worked hard, did what he needed to do to get around it, to be the best ever. That didn't go over real well when I spoke in Cleveland, but I think he's the best, the best there is. But, so when you think about it, most people run away from the obstacle. Oh my God, I embrace it now. And that book really crystallizes, why they're there for a reason. And then my favorite book of all time is The Tipping Point.
Yep.
It was Malcolm Gladwell, written pre-social media. So imagine he wrote it not knowing what this bazooka that was going to land on all of us that allowed us to communicate at scale. He talks about that just one-to-one, and the power of how the power of the few turned into the power of many. It is by far the most telling book. And then when you match it to what's happening now, I actually have that book, and I created a deal with the company to personalize it, and I give it out all the time. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's been years since I've read that, so I'll definitely pull that one off the shelf.
So fascinating.
Start it again.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, awesome. So where can listeners connect and learn more about you? I know they can find you on LinkedIn. You're commonly on there.
So I'm fortunate, blessed to grow up with the last name Nudelberg. So you're not going to find many of those. The spelling is Nudelberg. And if you just Google me, you'll see all my videos, my TED Talk. You'll see where to find me. I'm active on all the social media platforms. For people who ask, I respond myself. I don't have someone that does that. So I'm fully engaged, and I fully love it. And when people have a question, I respond and engage with them. And they go, wow, you like responded? I'm like, you sent me a message. Why wouldn't I respond? So no auto stuff, nothing. It's all me, and I love it and wouldn't give it up for anyone.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your valuable resource, your time with me. And I think, tons of good value and ideas here to hopefully get people start thinking and improve their say-do ratio.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I love it.
Thanks, Steve.